Welcome to this deep dive. If you are someone who loves to learn, someone who really wants the absolute cutting edge science, but without feeling completely bogged down by confusing medical jargon.
Right.
And if you respect a fast-paced breakdown of complex biology, you are entirely in the right place. Today, we have a mission.
You do.
We are taking a radical, completely paradigm-shifting look at cardiovascular and metabolic health, particularly as we age. And I have to say, the notes and the clinical data we are pulling from today are just incredible.
Yeah, they really are.
We're diving into the lifetime experience of a veteran cardiac surgeon. We're talking about someone who has spent 2 decades physically cutting open chests, holding beating hearts in their hands,
Wow.
and looking directly inside diseased human arteries.
Exactly. And, that hands-on perspective changes everything. I mean, this isn't theoretical modeling or a bunch of committee guidelines drawn up in a boardroom somewhere.
Where it's real.
Yes. This is raw cellular biology and immunology, backed by what is physically happening inside the blood vessels of real people. Our goal today is to extract the ultimate aha moments about your arteries.
The things you thought you knew but didn't.
Exactly. By the end of this, you're going to see exactly why standard medical guidelines for managing things like cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar might actually be causing profound harm, especially in older adults.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we have to start by destroying the single biggest misconception out there.
Oh, the plumbing myth.
Yes, the plumbing myth. If you're listening to this, you've probably been taught that your arteries are basically like kitchen pipes.
Right, yeah.
And that plaque is just a bunch of greasy sludge clogging them up over time. But looking at the biological reality here, that is completely false.
Completely false.
You cannot just pour some biological Drano, like apple cider vinegar or lemon water down your throat to clean them out. Plaque is not grease. Plaque is an immune response. It is a highly active inflammatory autoimmune war happening right now inside your artery walls.
It really is a war zone in there.
Yeah.
And to understand it, we actually have to rethink cholesterol entirely.
Which is hard to do.
It is, because most of us have been trained to fear LDL cholesterol as the ultimate villain that just causes heart attacks. But the reality is far more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
Normal LDL doesn't cause a heart attack until it oxidizes.
Right.
The best analogy I found in our notes is comparing normal LDL to iron. Think about iron. It's strong, it provides structure, and it absolutely belongs in the world. Your body needs it.
Yeah.
But what happens when you leave iron out in the rain?
It turns into rust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When iron is exposed to air and moisture, it oxidizes and rusts. And the exact same chemical process happens in your bloodstream. When your LDL cholesterol is exposed to free radicals, which, by the way, come from things like chronic inflammation, high blood sugar, or smoking.
All the usual suspects.
Right. When it's exposed to those, it oxidizes.
Yeah.
It literally turns into biological rust.
And that biological rust is what sets off all the body's emergency alarms. The immune system is constantly scanning, and it sees this oxidized LDL not as a nutrient anymore, but as a foreign invader.
Yeah, it treats it like a virus or a bacteria.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your body sends in the cleanup crew, which are these specialized white blood cells called macrophages. I just love the visual of this from the sources. They're like microscopic Pac-Men sent in to eat the garbage.
Right. But this is where the absolute tragedy of the macrophage happens.
It's tragedy.
Yeah, because these cells arrive at the artery wall with the best of intentions. They start engulfing the rusted cholesterol to clean up the tissue. But the problem is the rest just keeps coming.
Because the environment is still toxic.
Exactly. Your body keeps producing oxidized LDL. So the macrophages eat and they eat and they eat until they become completely bloated and engorged. They transform into what cellular biologists literally call foam cells. Because they're so overloaded with this toxic oxidized fat, they get physically stuck inside the lining of the artery.
They literally eat themselves to death.
Yeah.
They can't leave the artery wall, so they die right there, spilling all their highly toxic inflammatory contents back into the tissue. And as this graveyard of dead foam cells piles up, it creates what's called a necrotic core.
Which is a terrifying term.
It really is. That core, covered by a very thin, fragile biological cap, is the plaque. When that cap eventually tears or ruptures, a clot forms to seal it, and boom, that is what blocks the blood flow and causes a heart attack.
Which perfectly explains why chasing perfect numbers on a lab test can be such a dangerous illusion.
Oh, this part is so important.
It is. There's an incredibly striking patient story in the clinical notes about a 71-year-old man named Gerald. By every conventional metric, Gerald was the model patient. He took his statin medication religiously every single day for 9 years.
Wow.
His LDL cholesterol was sitting at 98.
Which any standard cardiologist would look at and say, excellent work, Gerald, you're doing great.
Exactly. He exercised, he ate right, and yet, year after year, his arterial plaque just kept growing.
Even with the statin.
Even with the statin. And the reason why is the exact biological mechanism we just discussed. Statins are brilliantly designed to lower the total amount of iron, the total LDL circulating in your blood. But they do absolutely nothing to stop the iron that is currently there from rusting.
The oxidation.
Yes, the oxidation process runs completely uninterrupted. So Gerald had a lower total number of LDL, but a massive portion of it was still oxidizing, penetrating his blood vessel walls and feeding those doomed foam cells.
Think about what that means for your own routine. If you're listening and you're dutifully taking a medication to lower your cholesterol, but your LDL is still rusting because of underlying stress or a poor diet, you aren't stopping the disease. You're just building a slightly smaller pile of rust.
What's fascinating here is your body actually has a built-in defense system against this exact problem. It's a microscopic enzyme that rides around on the back of your HDL, which is the good cholesterol.
HDL.
Right. This enzyme is called PO1. You can think of PO1 as a biological sniper. Its entire dedicated job is to patrol the bloodstream, hunt down the oxidized LDL, and destroy the rust before it can ever trigger that deadly foam cell cascade.
But it's a catch.
There's always a catch. The problem is that as we age, PO1 activity severely declines. The sniper essentially gets tired and goes to sleep.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you don't just have to accept that your internal sniper is asleep.
No, you don't.
The clinical data outlines exact, peer-reviewed dietary interventions that not only wake that PO1 sniper back up, but can actually reverse the plaque that is already built up in the arteries. But before we get to the cure, we have to talk about the pomegranate trap.
Oh, yes. The Barbara story.
I was reading the case study of Barbara, and it is honestly infuriating. Barbara was trying to do the right thing. She heard pomegranates were great for heart health, so she went out and drank 8 ounces of store-bought pomegranate juice every morning for 4 months.
And you would think that's a great habit. I mean, it sounds healthy.
Right. But instead of getting healthier, her routine backfired completely. She developed insulin resistance, her blood sugar shot up, and her arterial plaque didn't shrink a single millimeter.
That's because commercial pomegranate juice is a complete trap. To mass produce it, the juice is pasteurized at high heat, which completely destroys the delicate active compounds. Even worse, the bitter parts of the fruit are intentionally removed to make it taste sweet.
So it's basically soda.
Pretty much. What you're left with is basically just pure, concentrated liquid fructose. When you drink that, you get a massive blood sugar spike. And that spike chemically damages your glycocalyx.
And we should define the glycocalyx for you because it's absolutely crucial. The glycocalyx is basically this microscopic, super slick Teflon coating on the absolute inner lining of your blood vessels.
Right.
It protects the artery wall. So by drinking that sugary juice, Barbara was actively chemically burning the protective Teflon coating off her blood vessels every single morning.
So the real medicine isn't in the sweet, red, juicy arils of the pomegranate. It's in the parts of the fruit we instinctively throw away because they don't taste good. The bitter, white, spongy pith on the inside. The tough, leathery peel.
Which nobody eats.
Nobody eats them. But those parts are absolutely packed with incredible medicinal compounds called punicolagens.
Punicolagens. It sounds like an alien species, but it is a cardiovascular powerhouse. I want to break down exactly what these compounds do because it's like a 3-pronged attack.
Let's hear it.
First, punicolagens circulate through your blood and physically wake up that PO1 sniper on your HDL. It makes it hyperactive, so it starts aggressively hunting down the rusted, oxidized LDL again. Second, they act like a biological umbrella, shielding your body's natural nitric oxide from being destroyed by free radicals.
And third, and this is perhaps the most critical second that you take, they directly blunt the action of specific enzymes called MMPs.
The scissors.
Yes. Think of MMPs as microscopic pairs of scissors that constantly snip away at that thin fibrous cap covering your plaque.
Yeah.
By blunting those scissors, punicolagens physically stabilize the plaque. They reinforce the cap so it doesn't suddenly tear and rupture at 4 a.m., which is when a huge percentage of heart attacks happen.
And this isn't just theory. There's a landmark clinical trial we reviewed by Dr. Michael Avaram where patients with severe, dangerous blockages in their carotid arteries consumed this whole fruit, bitter pomegranate chemistry for a year.
The results were amazing.
Unbelievable. Their plaque didn't just stop growing. It physically shrank by up to 30%. That is
Yeah.
literal reversal of heart disease. And that brings us to the very specific synergistic arterial meal protocol, detailed by the surgeon to activate all these healing pathways at once.
It's a fascinating protocol because it combines foods that trigger different biological mechanisms simultaneously. It starts with a base of 2 to 3 cups of fresh arugula or beets.
Okay, why arugula?
The reason is that these vegetables are heavily packed with nitrates. Nitrates are the raw material your body absolutely must have to produce nitric oxide, which is the miracle gas that dilates your blood vessels, keeps them wide open, and maintains their youthful flexibility.
But here is the massive critical catch that blew my mind. Listen to this. The conversion of those nitrates into nitric oxide does not happen in your stomach. It relies entirely on a specific colony of bacteria living on the back of your tongue.
Right, the oral microbiome.
Yes. So if you are someone who uses antiseptic mouthwash every morning to get that minty fresh breath, you are literally nuking those bacteria. You kill them. And the entire nitric oxide production pathway stops dead in its tracks. You could eat a mountain of arugula, but if you use mouthwash, you get zero blood pressure benefit. It's the ultimate tragic irony, great breath, but stiff aging arteries.
The surgeon's warning in the notes is unequivocal. Absolutely no antiseptic mouthwash if you care about your cardiovascular health. Now, the next component in this meal is a very generous, poor value. We're talking 3 to 4 tablespoons of high phenolic extra virgin olive oil over those greens.
That's a lot of oil.
It is, but we mean the real stuff here. When you swallow this oil, it should physically burn or catch in the back of your throat. It should make you want to cough.
Yes, that peppery burn is the magic. That burn is a specific compound called oleocanthal. And the reason we want that burn is because oleocanthal activates a protein in your body called ABCA1.
The eject button.
Exactly. Now, remember those bloated, dying foam cells stuck in your artery walls that we talked about earlier? Think of ABCA1 as the physical eject button on those cells. When oleocanthal from the olive oil activates this protein, the foam cells literally vomit the trapped toxic cholesterol back out into the bloodstream.
From there, your HDL cholesterol can finally squeak it up and carry it away to the liver for disposal. This is the exact physical mechanism of how you shrink the necrotic core of the plaque. You are forcing the cells to empty their garbage.
The final component of this arterial meal targets the physical hardening of the arteries. You can add natto, which is a traditional fermented soybean dish, or aged Gouda cheese, or simply take a high-quality vitamin K2 supplement, specifically the MK7 version.
And to explain why, we have to look at Thomas's story.
Right.
Thomas was a patient whose coronary calcium score was 836. For context, anything over 400 means you have severe calcification. Your arteries are literally turning to bone.
Terrifying.
His doctor did the standard thing, put him on a statin and a strict low-fat diet. A year later, Thomas's score didn't go down. It jumped to 981.
But after Thomas switched to this specific protocol incorporating vitamin K2 MK7, his score did something that many cardiologists think is flat out impossible. It dropped back down to 841.
It did.
And it happens because vitamin K2 acts as the ignition key for a traffic cop protein called matrix GLA protein, or MGP. When K2 activates MGP, this protein physically binds to the misplaced calcium crystals in your artery walls, rips them out of the soft tissue, and redirects that calcium straight to your bones and teeth, which is where it actually belongs. You are effectively decalcifying the pipes.
And that idea of fixing the physical pipes leads us perfectly into the next huge paradigm shift from our clinical notes. We've talked about the walls of the arteries, but what of the pressure inside them?
Because everything we are taught about high blood pressure being a plumbing problem seems completely backwards now.
Completely. We're told hypertension means there's too much fluid in the pipes, so we need to take a diuretic pill to pee out the water, or we need to meticulously cut every single grain of salt out of our diet.
Right, but hypertension in adults is rarely about the sheer volume of fluid. It's about the pipes themselves losing their elasticity. The arteries have become rigid, calcified, and structurally damaged. They can't expand when the heart pumps.
But even more surprisingly, the clinical notes explain exactly why just cutting salt doesn't work for so many people. It comes down to something called the insulin-kidney lock.
The insulin-kidney lock.
Yeah. When you have chronically high insulin, and this happens years before you ever develop full-blown type 2 diabetes, that insulin chemically locks your kidneys into a sodium retention mode. Your kidneys flat out refuse to excrete salt, no matter how bland your diet is.
Wow.
This raises an important question. If high blood pressure isn't just a simple plumbing issue of too much water, and we can't just starve ourselves of salt, how do we actually fix the structural damage and unlock the system?
Well, first you have to repair that glycocalyx, that Teflon coating we talked about, by stabilizing your blood sugar so you stop chemically burning it off. But the notes also detail some amazing physical and mechanical ways to heal the vessel.
Like the hand grip.
Yes. One method that blew my mind is isometric hand grip training. You literally just take a hand grip squeeze device, squeeze it hard, and hold it. When you hold that squeeze, you are temporarily restricting blood flow to your arm. But the magic happens when you let go.
Exactly. When you release the grip, there is a massive, sudden rush of blood flow surging back through the arm. That physical friction of the blood rushing against the artery walls creates what physicists call shear stress.
Shear stress.
And your endothelial cells, the cells lining your blood vessels, are highly sensitive to shear stress. When they feel that rush, they instantly produce a massive flood of nitric oxide, forcing the vessels to dilate and drop your overall blood pressure.
It's like hacking your body's plumbing with physics instead of pills. You also have to consciously start nasal breathing. When you breathe through your mouth, you get oxygen, but that's it. When you breathe through your nose, your nasal passages naturally produce their own nitric oxide that gets carried directly down into your lungs and bloodstream with every single breath.
And beyond just the physical exercise of the vessels, the notes highlight just how profoundly your breath directly controls your autonomic nervous system. Your breathing is the steering wheel for your nervous system.
The steering wheel. I like that.
Fast, shallow chest breathing signals panic and physically constricts your blood vessels. Slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing signals safety and dilates them.
The surgeon actually breaks down 3 specific breathing tricks you can use to consciously manipulate your nervous system and drop your blood pressure in minutes.
Let's walk through them.
The first is the 4-7-8 technique, and this is for your daily baseline training. You breathe in quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale completely through your mouth, making a whoosh sound for 8 seconds. Doing this just 4 times a day physically retrains your nervous system to stay in a calm, parasympathetic state.
The second technique is resonant breathing, which is incredibly simple. 5 seconds breathing in, 5 seconds breathing out. This is your ultimate waiting room trick. If you suffer from white coat syndrome where your blood pressure spikes just because you're sitting in a doctor's office, do resonant breathing for 3 minutes before they put the cuff on you. It forces your heart rate variability into a perfect calming rhythm.
And the third is alternate nostril breathing. This is the emergency brake for immediate severe blood pressure spikes. You use your thumb to close your right nostril, inhale deeply through the left, then close the left nostril and exhale through the right, then inhale right and exhale left.
It sounds so simple.
But it works. By actively crossing the center line of your face with your breath, you force an immediate neurological rebalancing of your left and right brain hemispheres and your autonomic nervous system. Patients in the surgeon's clinic have literally seen their systolic pressure drop by 15 to 20 points in a matter of 5 minutes just sitting in a chair doing this.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the way modern medicine treats the cardiovascular system is profoundly structurally flawed, particularly as patients get older.
It really is.
Our medical guidelines routinely fail older adults by blindly applying the metabolic targets of a healthy 30-year-old to an 80-year-old body. The dangerous assumption in the medical community is always that lower is better, regardless of the patient's age or frailty.
And reading the case studies in our notes, you see just how deadly that assumption can be. Take the story of Eleanor. Eleanor was a vibrant 78-year-old woman, but her doctor looked at her chart and was determined to push her blood pressure down to the perfect textbook number of 120/80.
All right.
So they just kept adding and compounding medications until she finally hit 122/78 while sitting on the exam table. But here's the reality. Because Eleanor's arteries were naturally stiffer with age, her cardiovascular system couldn't adjust quickly enough when she changed positions. She developed severe orthostatic hypotension.
That drop when you stand up.
Exactly. One morning, she simply stood up from her kitchen table. Her blood pressure plummeted to 82/54. Her brain lost oxygen, and she passed out. She fell, shattered her hip, developed pneumonia during the hospital recovery, and died. Her quest for perfect numbers is literally what killed her.
It is a devastating, entirely preventable cascade. And the exact same rigid adherence to textbook numbers happens with blood sugar management.
It's a Harold story.
Yeah, the notes share the equally tragic story of Harold, a 78-year-old diabetic. His doctor was incredibly proud because Harold's A1C was 6.3, which is a spectacular number if you were a 35-year-old. But to force his body to maintain that number, Harold was on an intense cocktail of medications that caused his blood sugar to frequently crash into dangerous lows in the middle of the night.
Which is terrifying.
He complained of dizziness, but his doctor refused to lower the medication dosage because his average looked so good on the computer screen. Eventually, Harold suffered a massive hypoglycemic episode while he was driving. He completely blacked out, crossed the center line, and caused a head-on collision, severely injuring himself and another driver.
It's absolutely terrifying when the treatment becomes more dangerous than the disease. So if you're listening to this and you are over 75 or you're caring for an aging parent, what are the actual appropriate clinical targets? Because the surgeon lays out the true biological targets for seniors, and they are significantly more relaxed than what most standard issue pamphlets will tell you.
Yes. For blood sugar, a healthy older adult should aim for fasting morning levels between 100 and 140. For a frail older adult, that target should actually be pushed up to 110 to 150.
Wow, that's much higher.
It is.
Yeah.
An appropriate A1C target for someone over 75 is absolutely not 6.5. It is much safer, around 7.5 to 8.0. The primary clinical goal at that age is to prevent catastrophic, disorienting lows, not to chase perfect lab results to please the doctor.
And the approach is very similar for blood pressure. For someone over 75, the safest systolic blood pressure, the top number, is often between a 130 and 140. And for frail seniors, it can be perfectly appropriate up to 150.
Yes.
But the absolute most vital thing, the non-negotiable test you must insist on, is the lying to standing test. Your doctor needs to check your pressure while you are lying down and then immediately check it again when you stand up. If your systolic blood pressure drops by more than 20 points upon standing, your medication is likely way too strong, regardless of how beautiful that lying down number looks on the chart.
Exactly. The core takeaway here is a profound shift in perspective. When you are 35 years old, the entire goal of medical management is preventing a hypothetical vascular complication that might happen 20 or 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
But when you are 80 years old, the primary goal is preventing a devastating life-ending fall today.
It's a completely different game.
Right. A slightly higher blood pressure or a slightly higher blood sugar provides the necessary perfusion to keep the brain oxygenated and prevents the sudden dizzy spells that lead to broken hips in nursing homes.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at all of this incredible clinical experience, a deeply unifying theme emerges. True cardiovascular health is not about popping pills to chemically force your body into submitting to a textbook number on a lab report. It is fundamentally about giving your body the specific biological tools it needs to repair itself.
Yep.
Whether that's repairing the rust with targeted nutrients like punicalagins, decalcifying the pipes with vitamin K2, or using your own breath to manually dilate your arteries. And it requires the radical realization that when it comes to human biology and medical metrics, one size absolutely does not fit all.
It's about respecting the sheer complexity and wisdom of human biology. Your body inherently wants to heal itself. You just have to stop blocking its natural pathways and start providing the right raw materials for the job.
And to leave you with one final, truly mind-bending concept to mull over on your own, we spent a lot of time talking about the incredible power of pomegranates.
We did.
But the primary antioxidant inside pomegranates, a compound called ellagic acid, is actually completely useless to human cells in its natural state.
Which sounds crazy.
It does. Your human body physically cannot absorb it. It relies entirely on specific symbiotic bacteria living deep in your gut microbiome. Those gut bugs literally eat the ellagic acid and magically transform it into a totally new molecule called urolithin A. That new molecule is what then travels through your bloodstream directly to your heart, where it triggers the cellular cleanup of dead, toxic tissue.
Which is an incredible thought. It means if your gut microbiome is damaged from poor diet or antibiotics, the most powerful heart medicine in the world literally passes right through you unabsorbed.
Exactly. It implies that the ultimate secret to reversing heart disease might actually be hiding in your digestive tract. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take this knowledge, keep questioning the standard advice, keep learning about the amazing machine that is your body, and keep diving
All
deeper.
right, let's jump right into this. We're going to dig into some ideas about heart health that might really surprise you. We're looking at two big things that pretty much flip conventional wisdom on its head. First, what arterial plaque actually is, and second, whether aiming for that perfect